Most people think you need $1 million for $1,000 monthly dividends, but the real number that actually works is shockingly different. What if I told you that the dividend income you're chasing requires completely different math than what 99% of finance creators teach? Today, I'm breaking down exactly how much capital you actually need to generate $1,000 per month in dividends, and why most people's calculations are completely wrong. Listen, everyone on YouTube is throwing around numbers like, you need $1 million, or, invest $500,000 and you're golden. But here's the thing, nobody's explaining the real variables that determine whether you actually hit that $1,000 monthly dividend goal or not. The brutal math. It depends on so many factors that most creators conveniently skip over. Let me tell you what actually matters. First, we need to talk about dividend yield. This is where 90% of people mess up their calculations. See, the average dividend yield on stocks isn't some magic number. It changes constantly based on market conditions, the companies you choose, and the sectors you're investing in. The S&P 500 average is around 1.5% to 2% right now, but people get obsessed with high-yield dividend stocks that pay 6%, 8%, sometimes even 10%. Here's where the brutal truth kicks in. If you chase those high-yield stocks aggressively, yes, mathematically you need less capital. But, and this is a big but, you're taking on significantly higher risk. These companies often cut dividends suddenly. They have unstable financials. You might get that 8% yield, but it could disappear in 6 months, leaving you with nothing. So the question isn't just, how much money do I need? The real question is, how much money do I need while maintaining a diversified, sustainable portfolio that won't blow up in my face? That's completely different. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. Because the answer is messier, more complicated, and honestly, way more important than any clickbait number you'll see elsewhere. Stick around because this changes everything about how you should be thinking about dividend investing. Alright, let's break down the actual math, the part that nobody explains clearly. Because this is where it gets real. To make $1,000 per month in dividend income, you first need to understand the dividend yield equation. It's simple, annual dividend income equals total investment times dividend yield percentage. But everyone uses this equation wrong because they don't account for reality. Let me give you concrete numbers. Let's say you invest in a portfolio with an average dividend yield of 3%. This is actually pretty reasonable, it's higher than the S&P 500 average but not crazy aggressive. If your dividend yield is 3%, then to make $1,000 per month, which is $12,000 annually, you'd need to do the math backwards. You divide $12,000 by 0.03, and you get $400,000. So on paper, $400,000 invested at 3% yield gives you your $1,000 monthly dividend. Sounds simple, right? But here's where people fall apart. Most don't account for taxes. If you're in a regular brokerage account and you're collecting dividends, you're paying taxes on that income. Depending on your country and tax bracket, you could lose 15% to 37% of those dividends to taxes. So if you're getting $12,000 in dividends but losing 25% to taxes, you're actually only keeping $9,000. That's a problem if your goal is $1,000 monthly after-tax income. Now, there's another variable nobody talks about, dividend growth. See, the companies you invest in don't keep the same dividend forever. Good companies increase their dividends almost every year. Apple, Microsoft, Coca-Cola, they've been raising dividends for decades. So if you invest today at a 3% yield, in 5 years that same $400,000 might be generating 4% or 4.5% in dividends because the company's increased payouts. That changes everything about your long-term planning. But here's the brutal part. Not all dividend-paying companies grow their dividends. Some are mature, slow-growth companies that pay dividends but never increase them. Some actually cut dividends during economic downturns. And if you're relying on $1,000 monthly income, a dividend cut isn't just disappointing, it breaks your income target completely. So let's talk about the different scenarios because $400,000 isn't the final answer, it's just the starting point. Scenario 1, you want guaranteed monthly income immediately. You need a higher yield to get $1,000 with less capital. If you go for a 4% yield portfolio instead of 3%, suddenly you only need $300,000. But here's the catch, 4% yield portfolios come with higher risk. You're probably holding REITs, high-yield bond funds, or dividend aristocrats that are already overvalued. One market correction and your portfolio value drops 15 to 20%. Scenario 2, you have time and patience. You invest $300,000 today at a 3% yield, which gives you only $750 monthly right now. But if those companies grow their dividends at 5% annually, in 5 years you're getting $1,000 monthly from the same $300,000 investment. The capital stays the same, but the income grows. This is the strategy wealthy people actually use. Scenario 3, you're starting from zero. This is realistic for most people. You can't suddenly deploy $300,000. You need to invest gradually. Maybe you invest $500 monthly for 50 months. By the time you reach $300,000, the earliest investments are already generating dividends that you're reinvesting. Your effective capital requirement drops because of compound growth. Here's the brutal math nobody mentions, there is no single number. The answer depends on your risk tolerance, your timeline, your tax situation, and your ability to reinvest dividends. A 25-year-old investing for retirement has completely different math than a 65-year-old needing immediate income. That's why generic answers like, "you need $1 million," are completely useless. Now let's talk about what actually happens when you reach that $1,000 monthly goal, because here's where people get blindsided. You finally hit $400,000 invested. Your dividends are coming in. You're getting $1,000 monthly, and life is good. But then the market crashes 30%. Your portfolio drops to $280,000. Suddenly you're only getting $700 in dividends instead of $1,000. Now what? Do you panic sell? Do you wait it out? Most people panic, which is the worst decision. This is why emergency reserves matter. Financial experts say you should have 6 to 12 months of expenses saved before relying on dividend income. So if you need $1,000 monthly, you should have $6,000 to $12,000 in cash sitting separately. That's your safety net during market downturns. It lets you sleep at night knowing you won't be forced to sell stocks at the worst time. Another brutal reality, inflation eats your dividends. If you invest today and get $1,000 monthly, that same $1,000 has 30% less purchasing power in 10 years due to inflation. You think you've solved the problem, but you haven't. You need your dividend income to grow faster than inflation, which means you need companies that increase dividends annually. This is why dividend growth investing beats high-yield investing. A company paying 2% today but growing dividends 10% yearly will eventually beat a company paying 6% today but never growing. In 10 years, that 2% yield will become 5.2% through compound growth. Most people don't think long-term enough to see this. Let me show you the 3 income strategies that actually work, because not everyone needs $400,000 to hit their goal. Strategy 1, the conservative approach. You invest in dividend aristocrats and blue-chip stocks. Companies like Coca-Cola, Johnson & Johnson, Procter & Gamble. These pay around 2 to 3% yields but increase dividends every single year without fail. Yes, you need closer to $500,000 to get $1,000 monthly immediately. But in 15 years, that same $500,000 is generating $2,000 monthly from dividend growth alone. Zero additional investment needed. You're essentially getting paid more for doing nothing. Strategy 2, the aggressive approach. You go for REITs, covered call funds, and high-yield stocks paying 6 to 8%. Now you only need $150,000 to $200,000 to hit $1,000 monthly. But here's the trade-off, your portfolio is volatile. You'll see 20 to 30% swings. If you can't handle watching your $200,000 drop to $140,000 without panicking, this isn't for you. Most people think they can handle this until it actually happens. Strategy 3, the hybrid approach. You mix both. 70% in dividend growth stocks at 2.5% yield, 30% in high yield at 6%. Your blended yield is around 3.5%. You need about $340,000 to start with $1,000 monthly. You get some immediate income, some long-term growth, and it's emotionally manageable. This is what I personally recommend for most people. Here's the thing though, none of these strategies work if you don't actually execute them. You need to commit to your strategy and stick with it for at least 5 years. Most people jump around, chasing whatever's trending, and they never reach their goal because they're constantly derailing themselves. Now let's talk about the biggest mistakes people make when chasing dividend income, because knowing the math isn't enough, you have to avoid self-sabotage. Mistake number 1, chasing yield without checking fundamentals. You see a stock paying 8% dividends and you're excited. You don't check if the company can actually sustain that payout. You don't look at debt levels or earnings reports. Then boom, the company cuts the dividend 50%, and you've lost your income stream. Always check the payout ratio. If a company is paying out more than 75% of earnings in dividends, that's a red flag. They might not be able to maintain it. Mistake number 2, investing all your capital at once in a bull market. You save $400,000 and deploy it all when the market is at all-time highs. 3 months later, the market crashes. You panic because you think you're supposed to be making $1,000 monthly, but your portfolio is down $80,000. Dollar cost averaging, investing gradually over time, prevents this emotional nightmare. Mistake number 3, reinvesting dividends then suddenly stopping. Early on, reinvesting dividends accelerates your growth exponentially. But once you hit $1,000 monthly, people stop reinvesting and start spending the dividends. That's fine if that's your goal, but if you later need more income, you're stuck. Plan ahead, decide now whether you'll reinvest or spend those dividends. Mistake number 4, not adjusting for life changes. You calculate that you need $400,000 for $1,000 monthly. But what if you get married? Have kids? Lose a job? Your income requirements change. Your dividend portfolio needs to be flexible enough to adjust. Keep that emergency fund topped up. Stay liquid. Don't lock everything away. Let's be real about taxes because they're the silent killer of dividend income, and most people completely underestimate the impact. When you're collecting $1,000 monthly in dividends, that's $12,000 annually. Sounds good. But depending on where you live and your tax bracket, you could lose thousands of that to taxes. In the United States, qualified dividends are taxed at 0%, 15%, or 20% depending on income. So if you're in the 15% bracket, you're losing $1,800 of your $12,000. Your actual take-home is $10,200, not $12,000. But it gets worse if you're in a high-income bracket or live in a high-tax country. Some countries tax dividends as ordinary income, meaning rates up to 45% or higher. If that's you, and you're getting $1,000 monthly, you might only keep $550. Now you need double the capital to actually generate $1,000 in after-tax income. This completely changes the math. Here's the brutal part. Most financial calculators don't account for taxes. They tell you that you need $400,000 for $1,000 monthly. But that's pure tax. After taxes, you probably need $500,000 to $600,000 depending on your situation. That's a massive difference that changes your entire retirement planning. There are ways to minimize this though. Tax-advantaged accounts like IRAs, 401(k), and similar accounts in other countries let you grow dividends tax-free. If you can max those out first, you're delaying taxes significantly. Some countries have special accounts for retirement savings where dividends aren't taxed until withdrawal. Use them. The other strategy is holding dividend stocks in tax-deferred accounts and individual stocks in taxable accounts where you have more control. But honestly, most people don't optimize this, and they end up paying way more taxes than necessary. Here's something nobody talks about: the timing of when you start your dividend investing matters massively because of sequence of returns risk. Let's say two people both invest $400,000 to generate $1,000 monthly dividends. Person A invests in 2007, right before the financial crisis. They watch their portfolio drop 50% to $200,000. Their dividend income crashes from $1,000 to $500 monthly. They panic, they lose faith, they sell at the worst time. Person B invests in 2009, after the crash is over. Stocks are cheap. That same $400,000 buys them way more shares. They hit their $1,000 monthly goal faster and with less stress. Same capital. Same strategy. Completely different outcomes because of timing. This is sequence of returns risk. When you start matters as much as how much you invest. If you need $1,000 monthly income starting next month, you're taking a huge gamble. But if you can wait 2 to 3 years and build the portfolio before you rely on it for income, you're in a completely different position. This is why building your dividend portfolio while you still have a day job is so important. You're not forced to sell during downturns. You can actually take advantage of crashes by buying more. By the time you actually need that $1,000 monthly, the portfolio is seasoned, the dividend growth is compound, and you're in a psychologically better place. Another brutal truth: most people start dividend investing when they're 50 or 55, thinking they'll retire on it immediately. That's backwards. You should start at 35 or 40 so that by the time you need the income at 60 or 65, the portfolio is huge and stable. The math works completely differently when you have 20 to 25 years versus 5 to 10 years. Let me show you what this actually looks like in real life with 3 different scenarios, because numbers on a spreadsheet mean nothing until you see them applied to actual people. Scenario A, the 35-year-old starting from scratch. They have $10,000 saved and they start investing $500 monthly. Over the next 15 years, they accumulate $100,000 in contributions. But that's not the full picture. Those early investments have been growing and compounding. With 7% average annual returns plus dividends being reinvested, that $100,000 in contributions becomes roughly $250,000. Now they're generating $750 monthly in dividends at a 3.6% yield. Not quite $1,000, but close. In another 5 years, dividend growth pushes them to $1,000 monthly without any additional investment. Scenario B, the 45-year-old with $200,000 saved. They want $1,000 monthly now. They invest the $200,000 at a blended 5% yield. They're getting $833 monthly, close enough. They keep their job and add $300 monthly to their portfolio. In 3 years, they've added $10,800 more, plus compounding brings them to $230,000. Now they're exceeding $1,000 monthly easily. By 55, they're generating $2,000 plus monthly and can retire comfortably. Scenario C, the 60-year-old with $500,000. They need income now. They invest at 3.5% yield and get $1,458 monthly. They're already past their goal. They can spend the dividends guilt-free. They don't need to work. They're done. The pattern is obvious: time is your biggest asset. Starting early with small amounts beats starting late with large amounts every single time. But if you're starting late, don't despair. You just need to be more aggressive with your savings rate and possibly accept slightly higher risk yields until you get to your goal. Alright, let's bring this all together because we've covered a lot of ground and I want to make sure you actually walk away with something actionable. The brutal math of $1,000 monthly dividends isn't one single number. It depends on your dividend yield, your tax situation, your timeline, and your risk tolerance. But here's what you should take away: most people need between $300,000 to $500,000 to generate $1,000 monthly sustainably. Not $1 million. Not $50,000. Something in that range depending on your strategy. If you're young and have time, start now with whatever you have. $5,000, $10,000, $50,000, doesn't matter. Start today and let compound growth do the heavy lifting. You don't need perfection, you need consistency. Invest monthly, reinvest dividends, and ignore the noise. If you're older and have capital, be honest about your timeline. You can't build a $500,000 portfolio in 2 years if you only have $50,000. Either adjust your income target downward, or accept that you need to work longer, or take on more risk. There's no magical solution. And here's the most important thing: dividend investing only works if you actually execute. Not if you read about it. Not if you watch videos. Not if you plan it perfectly. You have to actually open a brokerage account, buy dividend stocks, and stick with it for years. Most people never do. They watch, they learn, they plan, and they do nothing. Don't be that person. So here's your action step: in the next 48 hours, decide your target. Do you want $1,000 monthly? $500 monthly? Be specific. Then calculate backwards: how much capital do you need? Then ask yourself honestly, can you save that in your timeline? If yes, start. If no, adjust your target. That's it. That's the whole game.